Hey y'all, so I'm going to take a few minutes, I hope I can keep it to a few minutes, to talk to you a little bit about the nitrogen cycle in your at-home freshwater aquarium. It sounds a little bit complicated, but I'm going to try to make it a little user-friendly so that you understand. The nitrogen cycle is probably the most important thing to understand about fish keeping. And for me personally, it's been the hardest thing for me to, I don't want to say understand, but to keep on top of. So the basics of it are, there is something called a nitrogen cycle that you need to have going in your tank. And before you set your tank up and actually put your fish in, you need to have your tank cycled, which means that this cycle has completed and is ready for the fish. So what the nitrogen cycle is it's basically an ecological cycle that happens in your tank that will help keep your water safe and healthy for your fish. Basically, there are toxins that will come in your water due to fish excretion and plants dying or wasted food on the bottom of your tank, etc., etc. They will release things that are bad for your fish, such as ammonia, nitrate, and nitrites. So those things will be in your water. The part of the cycle is that there are beneficial bacteria that will grow to combat those negative toxins in your water, and they will eat them and keep them at safe levels so that your fish are healthy and safe. When this cycle gets out of balance, after it's already cycled, it's called crashing the cycle, and that's what I've had happen a few times, and I've lost fish every single time I've had a tank cycle crash. So that's been the number one hardest thing for me, is realizing that all these little things that you can do in your tank can create a cycle crash. For example, one time I had my filter get clogged due to snails, pest snails had gotten in there, and so I took the tank out and was kind of just like washing it out to get the the snails out, and that crashed it. And so most of the beneficial bacteria live in your filters. Some will also live in your substrate, and so always be very careful when you're doing anything with your filter, because you don't want to crash the cycle. So to start the cycle, or to create the cycle when you're first setting up your tank, there are a few ways you can do it. There's a fish-in cycle, and there's a fishless cycle. I highly, highly recommend the fishless cycle, even though it's hard because you set up your tank, you're super excited, you want to add fish in, and waiting for it to cycle without fish takes 6 to 8 weeks. So it does suck waiting that long and having to be patient, but it's really worth it. If you do a fish-in cycle, it's actually a lot more work. You have to do a ton of water changes to keep your fish alive, and even then you'll probably lose a lot of fish because they're just living in the toxic water until it gets better. So I don't know a lot about a fish-in cycle because I've never done it. I'll just tell you how to do a fishless cycle. So you can either, you have several options. Actually, you have like a ton of options, but I'm just going to talk about the main ones. You can go to your fish store, and they usually have a bottle of the bacteria. So you add that in, and then you also put fish food in your tank, and as the fish food decomposes, it will release the ammonia, and then your cycle will get going. You can ask a friend who keeps fish for a little bit of their substrate or an old filter, or you can even give them a filter to put in their tank for a couple of weeks to gather up the bacteria and then put it in yours, and it will continue to grow. That's actually what I did. I started the cycle, but it was taking forever. And so I asked somebody online, and somebody actually had a filter that they were just getting ready to change out, and they gave it to me, and then I was cycled within 2 weeks. So that's what I would recommend. Not everyone can do that, and so if not, you can just continue to add flakes to your water every single day. It will take some time. You will need to test your water every couple of days while you're trying to cycle your tank. The way that you know is cycling is you're going to see your ammonia start to rise. When you first start, ideally you're going to have 0 everything. So you're going to test for ammonia, nitrites, and nitrates. You're going to start out with seeing the ammonia at 0, and then you'll start to see it rise. And then once your ammonia starts to rise, you know your cycle has started. So in the next couple of days you test, you should see some nitrites go up. And so then after that, a few days later, you're going to see your nitrates start to go up. So everything's going to kind of skyrocket at first, and this means that, you know, the water is definitely getting toxic and you're allowing this bacteria to grow. Then you'll start to see your ammonia go down, and then you'll see your nitrites go down, and then you're going to see your nitrates go down. So the way that you know your tank is done cycling is you're going to have 0 ammonia. That's what you always want. You're going to have 0 nitrates. That's what you always want. And then you're going to want between 5 and 10 nitrates. Some people say you can go up to 20 to be healthy for the fish. Most people agree that it probably needs to be 10 and under, but you always do want some. If you see no nitrates, then your tank is not cycled. So you're always looking for 0 ammonia, 0 nitrites, and between 5 and 10 nitrates. And so there you go. There is the nitrogen cycle. Super important. It's basically the number one thing that you need to know about and learn about and make sure you're on top of, or you will lose fish. Your fish cannot survive in toxic water. It just can't. Some fish are hardier than others. They will survive longer. And actually, even if they don't die and you have a cycle crash, they will be sick, or they will have long-lasting effects. They won't be as healthy. So, yes, there you go. I hope I made it somewhat simple. I know when I first started reading about it, it was super confusing for me. And so I am really trying to break it down. And like I said, it's still something that I'm working on. And I actually added a second sponge filter just to grow more bacteria in case anything happens, like happened with my main filter where I had to clean it out or whatever. Then I'll still have some bacteria in my tank and hopefully it won't crash. So anyways, you guys let me know if you have any questions or anything. And okay, bye.